the month of Kislev. Hoping that everybody is doing well, and we are up to Daf Ayin Amud Aleph of Maseches Pesachim. We are starting from the Mishnah at the bottom of Daf Samach Tes Amud Beis, where the Mishnah tells us as follows: when do you bring a carbon chagiga together with your carbon pesach? Says the Mishnah, Bisman Shuba Bachol, when you are bringing it on a weekday, meaning when Erev Pesach is not on a Shabbos. But it also needs to be B'tahara, in a state of purity, Uvemuat, and when there are small portions meaning that there are lots of people registered as the Menuim for each Karban, for the Karban Pesach that you are bringing together with it a Karban Chagiga. Uvisman Shuba B'Shabbos, and when it comes out on a Shabbos, then B'Meruba, then it could be in large portions. Uvetuma, and in a state of Tuma, in Mevinim or Chagiga, in a state of Tuma, you don't bring a Chagiga at all. Says the Mishnah, Chagiga Haisaba min Atzain, min Abakar, min Hakvasim, min Aizim. You can bring your Chagiga from sheep, cattle, from lambs, or from goats, meaning any of the four species of behemoths. You are allowed to bring a Chagiga from that. Min Azchar, min Hanekevas. It could be from male animals or female animals. And your Karban Chagiga can be eaten for 2 days and 1 night, as opposed to the Karban Pesach, which needs to be eaten either by Chatzos or by the next morning, depending on the Machlokes Tanaim. But you only have that night, certainly, to finish it. Karban Chagiga you can eat for 2 days and 1 night, meaning the night in between. Says the Gemara as follows: My Tanadiktane Chagiga. What is going on here? That all of a sudden we are talking about the Karban Chagiga. We were in the middle of talking about Karban Pesach. Why are we talking about Karban Chagiga all of a sudden? Says the Gemara Tana, because the previous Mishnah taught us Tana Harkavasa B'Havasa, that if we were speaking about carrying the Karban Pesach and bringing the Karban Pesach, meaning carrying it back and bringing it to the Beis Hamikdash, Delay Dachi Shabbos. Those things do not override Shabbos. And therefore, the mission is continuing. You know what else doesn't override Shabbos? Chagiga. That Chagiga also doesn't override Shabbos. Says the Gemara, and this is what the Mishnah is telling us. When are you going to bring a Chagiga together with your Karban Pesach? Bisman Shubah B'Chol. When Erev Pesach is on a weekday, and when everybody's tahar, and when there are lots of people registered on your Karban Pesach, such that you will have muat. You'll have, each one is only going to be eating a small amount of Karban Pesach. We'll see why in a little bit, but therefore you'll need a Karban Chagiga so that you will be able to eat the Karban Pesach ala sova while everybody is satiated. Keep that in mind. We'll see that a little bit later. Amar Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi, Shema Mina, we learn from this, Chagigas Arba Asar, that the Chagiga of the 14th day of Nisan, meaning when you bring a Chagiga on Erev Pesach, Lav Chavihi. This is not a Chiyuv. It's not a Chiyuv. How do you know that it's not a Chiyuv? Says the one of the Isal Kadaite Chaviv, because if you would imagine that there's a Chiyuv in the Torah, that the Torah obligates you to bring a Chagiga on the 14th day of Nisan, Teisa b'Shabbos, then you would be obligated to bring on a Shabbos, but Teisa b'Meruba. And even if you would not have a lot of people on your Karban Pesach, you would still need to bring it. You would need to. You would still need to bring your Chagiga because it's a din. If there's a din in the Torah to do a certain thing at a certain point in time, so then it is irrelevant to other din. V'teisi b'tuma, and you would also be able to bring it in a state of tuma if the majority of people were tamei, meaning it would be tuma. The tuma would be dechuya. Uvemuat, and even if it would be if it is b'tuma, says the Gemara uvemuat, and if it is in small portions, okay. My time asha. Uvamut, my time asha. Why do we want it to be in case of muat, meaning when there's only a little bit that everybody's going to eat? Kedatanya, because we have a brayso, Chagiga abayim Pesach, the Chagiga that comes together with the Pesach nechalas tchila, that has to be eaten first. Kedei sheyeh Pesach nechal ala seva. So the Karban Pesach should be eaten in a state of being satiated. That's the din. Karban Pesach should be eaten in a state of being satiated. And therefore, you have the Chagiga with it. Now, on the Seder plate, we have the egg, which is Zecher lechagiga. That's what that is doing on the Seder plate, to remember that there was Chagiga that was eaten together with the Karban Pesach, And that is why we start the Suda with the Chagiga, because with egg, that's the first thing that you have as part of the meal. So you have matzah. And then the first thing that we have is the Beitza, so that we could be Yotze, the Zecher Chagiga. Okay. Then the Mishnah told us that it's eaten for 2 days and 1 night. And the Gemara now questions, Masnisin Deleke Ben Tema. Our Mishnah must be not according to the opinion of Ben Tema. The Tanya, because the Brisa teaches us, Ben Tema teaches Chagiga Habayim Pesach Chagiga that comes together with the Korban Pesach, meaning it's often on the same day at the same time. Harehi Pesach. It has the same din as the Korban Pesach. And it can only be eaten liyam v'layla, meaning for a day and a night, meaning that day of Erev Pesach and the night of Pesach. But by the next morning, it's done. It is done. You're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to eat from it any longer. The Chagigas Chamisha Asar, and the Chagiga of the 15th, if you bring it the next day, if you bring it on the first day of Yantav, then it reverts, it defaults back to the same din of a regular Chagiga that it is eaten for 2 days and 1 night. The Chagigas Arba Asar and the Chagiga of the 14th day of Nisan, if you bring a Chagiga on the 14th day, you fulfill the obligation of Simchas Yamtiv. Ve'ein yotzeba mishum chagiga, and you wouldn't be able to fulfill the obligation of chagiga. What does that mean? Says Rashi, what we mean here is that if a person had a korban that they were planning to bring as a chagiga on the 14th day of Nisan, and then they didn't, and they brought it instead on the 15th day of Nisan, it's a different korban. You'd be yotze the din of Simchas Yamtiv by bringing this as a korban. You could do it, but that would be Shalmi Simcha. It would not be the mitzvah of Chagiga, which is a mitzvah. You have to bring a Chagiga every day, every Yom Tov. You have to bring a Korban Chagiga. If you would have a 14-day, meaning a 14th day of Nisan animal that you decided to bring on the 15th, that would be a different Korban. Rashi points out here, im ikva ad lemachar. If you waited until the next day, v'shachtem, then you shechted it. Yotzeva mishum simcha mishum shalmi simcha. Then you yotze the mitzvah of simcha. Av al gav shemufreshes ve'omedes hi kvar. Even though it was already designated beforehand and it's ready to be used for a chagiga, it's a different korban. It has different halachas. It's called the chagigas Erev Pesach, as opposed to the chagiga of the first day of Pesach. It's a different day. Says the Gemara as follows. Okay, this is a very strange din that Ben Tema is telling us here. Where does he have such a meaning? These are all dinim daraisa that he's discussing. Where does he have these limudim from? Says the Gemara, my time of Ben Tema, what is the rationale behind Ben Tema's din? As Rav taught Techia his son. Pasuk says, "V'lo labaker zevach chad hapasach." The pasuk in Sefer Shmos tells us that you should not leave until morning the zevach of Chag HaPesach, the zevach of the sacrifice of the Chag of Pesach. Says Rav Techia, zevach Chag ze chagiga. When the pasuk says zevach Chag HaPesach, the pasuk could simply have said, "V'lo yolin labaker hapesach," "V'lo yolin hapesach ad boker." What does it mean? Zevach Chag HaPesach. That means Zevach Chag. That is a direct reference to the sacrifice of the Chag, which is the Chagiga. HaPesach means K'mashma, as it sounds, the Korban Pesach. V'amar Rachmana, and the pasuk says Lo Yalin. That in both of these cases, you are not allowed to leave it until morning. Meaning both of them expire by the next morning. You are not allowed to have the Korban Pesach and the Korban Chagiga that comes with it on the first day of Pesach. It has to be eaten at the night. They asked the question as follows: to Ben Tema. They said, "Necheles tzli or in necheles tzli?" Does your Korban Chagiga that comes with the Korban Pesach, this strange Korban Chagiga that is only offered on the 14th day of Nisan, together with the Pesach, that has this din of being very similar to the Pesach in terms of its timing? So this zevach, is this necheles tzli? Does it have to be eaten roasted? Or in necheles tzli, or does it not need to be eaten roasted? Ki akshe rachman lePesach lelina aval tzli loy odilma leshna. Do we say that when the Torah makes a hekesh, compares Korban Pesach to Chagiga, in this case, does it compare it all the way? Meaning, does it compare it only for the expiration time of when you are not allowed to leave it over, or even to the methodology of how it needs to be eaten, as in it needs to be eaten cooked? Or dilma, or potentially loshna, doesn't make a difference. You can have it roasted, cooked, boiled, whatever you like. Tashma, come in here as follows. Halayla hazeh kuletzli. Where's this halayla hazeh kuletzli? So this is in the final parak of Maseches Pesachim. We'll see it in the 10th parak. That one of the lines of Manishtana that we don't sing in our Manishtana today is Manishtana Arayis Mikol Halayla. So in what ways tonight different from all other nights? Shebachol halaylos, on all other nights we eat however we want to eat it. But halayla hazeh kuletzli. But this, not everything is roasted. Ooh. If everything is roasted, it sounds like even the korban chagiga has to be roasted, and that's why for many the minhag is that the egg that is put on the seder plate is roasted, like the shita ben tema. There are those that say that it needs to be roasted. V'amar Rav Chisda says, "Zu devri ben tema." These are the words of ben tema. Shma mina, and we hear from this that is the din, that it has the same din as korban pesach. It has to be eaten roasted. They asked the question as follows: the ben tema to ben tema. Okay, so it has the same expiration date. It also needs to be roasted. With regards to this chagiga, ba min abakar or eina ba min abakar, can you use meat? Can you use meat that comes from cattle or not? Meaning, the korban pesach can only be from kvasim and izim, from lambs and goats. Is this allowed to be cow? So ba min anakevas. Or can you have a female animal, or does it need to be from a male animal like the korban pesach? Ba bas shtei shanim, is it allowed to be 2 years old, or ba bas shtei shanim, or you cannot bring it from an animal that is already 2 years old? It has to be less than a year old. Ki aksher rachman lepesach lemidi de achila. Do we say that when the Torah compares the Pesach to the Chagiga, it is about how you eat it and when you eat it exclusively, or does it include all of the dinim? All of the other dinim, or does not make a difference? Tashma, so come and hear the following brisa. Chagiga abba ima Pesach, Chagiga that comes together with the Pesach. Harehi ke Pesach, it is exactly like the korban Pesach. Meaning, and here is a quick review of Hilchos Korban Pesach, of the dinim that apply to the Korban Pesach. It has to be Ba'min HaSen, it has to come from sheep. Ve'ena Ba'min HaBakar, it cannot come from cattle. Ba'min HaZcharim, it has to be male. Ve'ena Ba'min HaKevas, it cannot be female. Ba'bas Shnasa, it needs to be 1 year old. Ve'ena Ba'bas Shtei Shanim, it cannot be 2 years old. Ve'ena Necheles El Yom V'Layla, it can only be eaten for day and night, but the next morning it's done. Ve'ena Necheles El Tzli, it can only be eaten roasted. Ve'ena Necheles El Menuyav, and it can only be eaten for the people that are counted on it, meaning you have to be menuim for this. Man shamas lei deis lei hai svara. Who says all of these things with this svara? Who says all of these halachas? Ben Tema. This is Ben Tema's opinion. Shema mina. We learn from this kula milsa ba'ina that we know all of these things. You require all of the things that are true about Korban Pesach are true about Chagiga. Shema mina. That's the din. Ibailu, they asked further. Ooh, okay. Let's talk about another din of Korban Pesach and see if this is true as well. Ibailu, they asked leben tema to ben tema as follows: Yesh ba mishum shviras atzim. Is there a prohibition? All of these things are being obligations and the way that we're supposed to do it. Yesh ba mishum shviras atzim. Is there an issue deraisa of breaking the bones of the korban chagiga or not? Because the pasuk says by korban pesach ve'atzim le'shishbiru bay. You are not allowed to break a bone of the korban pesach. Is there a prohibition of breaking a bone of the chagiga? There's no prohibition of breaking a bone. Do we say that even though the Torah has compared the Korban Pesach to the Korban Chagiga? Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "Boy, boy, that you shouldn't break a bone in it. Boy, maybe that means boy in it and not in the Chagiga. There's no prohibition of breaking a bone in the Chagiga. Or Dilma, or perhaps." Hi, boy, the boy of Etzem L'Shishbru boy is talking about the Korban Pesach. Bekosher v'lo b'posel hu da'asa means that you're not allowed to break a bone of the Korban Pesach that is kosher, that you're eating as a Korban Pesach. V'lo b'posel, but there's no iser of breaking the bone of a Korban Pesach that became tameh, became possible, whatever the case is. Now the iser has gone away. Meaning that's not a din in eating it. That's a din in can you break the bone of this animal or not? So do we say that it's a din only in the Korban Pesach but not on the Chagiga, or that boy means boy kosher v'lo b'posel? Who the asa, and that then it would be true even of the Chagiga. Tashma. So now coming here, and this is going to be an interesting brisa. that is going to take us through some halachas of muchsak and of stam and of tum and tara. Says the Brisa as follows: Sakin Shanim says ba'arba asar. If a knife was found on the 14th day of Nisan, sheichet b'miyad, you can slaughter it with it immediately. Meaning, if you found the knife, a slaughtering knife, on the 14th day of Nisan, you can use it immediately. Why would you think you can't use it immediately? Well, because the Brisa continues. If it was the 13th day of the month of Nisan, Shaina umatbil, then you have to go back and you have to be toivelant. Why? Because you need to be sure that the knife that you are using to shech the Korban Pesach is tahar. But a knife that was found on the 14th, the stam understanding, the regular understanding of such a knife is that it was for sure toiveld, because the shechita knife was obviously toiveld in time for the 14th of Nisan to be able to use it. To be able to use the shech the Korban Pesach. So sheichet miyad, you can use it immediately, but it was found on the 13th. Then you would not be able to shech with it immediately. You have to go and tovel it. Obviously, you're not shechting Korban Pesach on the 13th. You want to shecht it in general, shecht another animal. So shanim apil, you have to go back and you have to tovel it. What about a kupitz? This is the rest of the brisa. What about kupitz? Means a meat cleaver, like a big knife that's not used for shechita, too clunky to use for shechita. It's used for chopping up meat and for breaking bones. Says the brisa, bein bazeh uvein bazeh shenu mapel. Whether it's the 13th or the 14th, you have to go and you have to tovel it. You have to tovel it. Meaning, nobody is using a meat cleaver on the 14th of Nisan. Ooh, why not? Pashtus is money. Whose opinion is this? If you said this is the opinion of the Rabbanan, the matbil, the chayzel pesach. What's the difference between a knife that you have to that you assume that it's already been toveled, the chayzel pesach, because it's fit for Pesach? Kupitz nami, the kupitz, the cleaver as well. You would need that to cut up your chagiga. Everybody's going to tovel all of their kitchen equipment beforehand. This must be the opinion of Ben Tema. And we learn from this that the reason that you cannot assume, according to Ben Tema, that the knife, that the cleaver has been toveled is because nobody needs a cleaver on the 14th of Nisan. Says the Gemara, lie. No, that's not true. This could certainly be the opinion of the Rabbanan. Maybe the 14th of Nisan is a Shabbos. And if the 14th of Nisan is a Shabbos, so then the reason that it's not, that the kupitz hasn't been toveled is because nobody's bringing the chagiga yet today. The chagiga is going to be brought the next day. It's going to be brought on Sunday, which is the first day of Pesach. Because the Mishnah has told us that only the chagiga of weekday is brought, but the chagiga of Pesach is not brought on Shabbos because it could be brought the next day. Says the Gemara, but the rest of the brisa says Chala arba asar yes b'Shabbos that the 14th day of Nisan falls out on Shabbos. Sheichet b'miyad, you can shecht with it immediately. You can shecht with this knife immediately. V'chamisha asar on the 14th day. Sheichet b'miyad, you can also shecht with it immediately. Nimtzeis kupitz kshur the sakin. So you see that the kupitz is connected to the sakin, meaning it has the same din as the sakin. We seem to be comparing these two things. That the 14th on the 14th, if it fell out on a Shabbos, sheichet b'miyad, you can use it to shecht immediately. Meaning even with the meat cleaver. Meaning in theory you're not going to use it, but you could use it for shecht. Chamisha asar on the 15th day, sheichet b'miyad, you can use it immediately. But it's only on the 14th that fell on a chol you wouldn't. Nimtzes kupitz kshur l'sakin. You see that the kupitz and the sakin are the same din. Harei kisakin is like the knife. It's compared to the knife. Michlal the reish alav b'Shabbos askin. That for sure means that we're not talking about Shabbos in the ratio of the Mishnah. It must be that we're talking about a weekday, and then this is actually the opinion of Ben Tema, and this is a good proof to the shita of Ben Tema. Meaning we don't know what Ben Tema holds with regards to the Isser of Etzem Lashish B'Rubai applying to the Chagiga, and now we want to say that it is applying to the Chagiga, and we learned that from the fact that there seems to be the opinion of Ben Tema saying that the Kupitz wasn't toveled, that you can't assume that it was toveled because you're never going to need it for the Korban Chagiga, because nobody ever needs a cleaver. You just need a shechting knife. That's all that you're going to need. And we said, no, maybe it's the opinion of the Rabbanan, and we're talking about a Shabbos, and then everybody agrees, and then this isn't a good raya for Ben Tema. Says the Gemara, ve'ela, the last two words of the page, under Ayin Amud Aleph, ve'ela must be sheba b'meruba. Maybe it is in a case of meruba that everybody, that this is still the opinion of the Rabbanan, and this is when it came as a result of meruba, when they were, you're assuming that there was not a large crowd that were part of the menuyim for this Korban Pesach, and therefore you would not need, you're not able to bring a chagiga with it because there aren't enough people to eat from the Korban Pesach, such that you would need a chagiga as well, and that's why you didn't bring the chagiga, and that's why you didn't table the kupitz, because there weren't enough people. Says the Gemara, top of Ayin Amud Beis, Mina Yade. How would you ever know that there aren't enough people? Meaning, if a guy finds your knife, does he know how many people were involved in your Korban Pesach? He has no idea. He has no idea whether or not there were enough people on the Korban Pesach or not. So if it's a Shabbos, that's Shabbos for everybody. And if it's a weekday, it's a weekday for everybody. But if it's b'meruba, that would be unique to each Korban Pesach. There'd be no way of telling. So we say, Ella, it must be Sheba b'tumah. It must be in the case, I mean, in order to maintain that this price is still the opinion of the Rabbanan, it has to be, and the reason that the kupitz, you shouldn't assume that the kupitz was toivled, is Sheba b'tumah. That's that, and then it could still be the opinion of the Rabbanan. And we will continue with this question and with this challenge and trying to assume that this price is still the Rabbanan and that we don't yet know the opinion of Ben Tema. We will continue with that tomorrow. And everybody should have a beautiful evening. If you have not yet said Kiddush Levana, tonight is the final night to do so. So make sure that you do. And we'll see you tomorrow morning.